All right, Michael Crawford, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to talk to you, not on the other side of a Zoom
Yeah,
call.
I was just thinking that. We've met so many times, but only through camera.
Absolutely.
The way of the world these days.
Yes,
It's nice to be in
absolutely.
person.
So now I want to talk to you about a book that you have coming out, I believe tomorrow, correct?
Tomorrow, Tuesday.
So Tuesday, May 2nd. And I know a lot about your background, obviously, from you coming here and all the interviews we've done in the past and things like that. But for the folks who maybe wouldn't understand the title of this book, I got it. Maybe you need to explain a little bit about what that means.
Yeah, I've had a lot of folks say that the cover looks really wonderful and very eye-catching. But I also, this weekend, just as I was saying, I had someone say to me, well, what does the penthouse part of it mean? Does it mean like you're really rich and you live in a penthouse? And the reality is I've worked for two big companies outside of the Hall of Fame Resort and Entertainment Company. One, the Walt Disney Company, and I worked there for almost 25 years. In fact, I'm so mad I left before my 25th anniversary because they give you really cool stuff, like 25, 20, and all that
Like
stuff.
Mickey ears in gold or
Oh,
something?
it's like, yeah, I won't go into the detail, but it's cool stuff, pretty cool swag. And then I left to become president of Four Seasons Hotels and Resorts. Now, if you know anything about Four Seasons, it is a phenomenal luxury brand hotel. And so the penthouse part is really what I learned at Four Seasons.
Okay, so it is From the Mouse's House to the Penthouse.
Right.
That's the title of the book.
The progression of my career.
Okay, so you say in the book that it is a manual, due diligence for folks, correct? So
You did read it. Wow.
I did, yes.
Thank
so who is it aimed at? Who are you trying to reach?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of audiences for this book. You know, there are so many folks that love Disney. And so every time a Disney executive tells something about what a piece of the company represents, I think there are going to be these Disney files out there that will be fascinated by some of the stories. There are people who love Four Seasons the same way. And so there are going to be folks, how does that company work? And what did he do there to help them expand and grow? I really think, though, it appeals to people in business that from any angle, you don't have to live abroad, gives you lessons that I've had, how to treat people with respect, how to be transparent, how to communicate. All lessons, frankly, I'm still using here today with the Hall of Fame Resort and Entertainment Company and in building the village.
Right.
So I think it does appeal to a pretty wide audience. I think it could even live in academia as well, as students learn about strategic planning or growth or business opportunities, something that they, I think, would be appreciative of.
Yeah, because as I read it, I'm not that audience of a person who's in business in your line of work or anything like that, but I was matching it to a lot of different things, even that I talk to people about in my line of work, and I think it does fit a lot. It's applicable to a lot of different people. I think so. I don't think it's a book just for, like, as you say, a manual or due diligence, but it's good for a lot of different people to be able to sit down and think about talking to people like you talk of other cultures, and that can happen right here in our own community.
Yeah, look, I would tell you that people are always fascinated, and I know so many folks live outside the United States, and they come here and they'll say, wow, it's so different going to New York than it is to Florida, than it is to California or Alabama or Texas. There's so many different cultures, which is what makes our country so great,
right,
in my opinion. The diversity of culture really enriches the experiences that we have here, and we're so fortunate to live in the United States, even though I know there's political stuff all the time. But I do think the book speaks to, it sort of transcends, am I just doing business in Asia or is it Europe? I think it can appeal to folks anywhere.
Yeah, you said not good, not bad, just different.
Just different.
Right?
Yeah, that's right.
And so you have to adjust to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was the same here.
Yeah, exactly.
When I moved here, you have to work with the city, you have to work with the county, you have to work with the state. And you have to appreciate that culturally there is a way that business is done here, and politically the same thing. And so I remember when I first moved, someone asked me, are you, is this sort of a letdown coming to a city that's this size versus living in Toronto, Canada, or Shanghai? And my response was very real. I grew up in a town in Willard, Ohio, 7,000 people. So this is 10 times the size. So I still had to learn how to get to the gas station, do banking, do all the things. So culturally, you have to learn how to adapt is the message.
That's one of the things that made me laugh when you talked about somebody saying, "Are you a Midwesterner?"
Yeah,
And you said, "Yeah," and they said, "Yeah, I can tell."
right.
I thought that was going to be a negative thing, but it turned out no, it was not a negative thing.
I
Correct?
think so many people look at the Midwest of the United States as being vanilla, sort of salt. You hear this phrase all the salt of the earth people, but not the movers and shakers in LA or Miami
Right.
or places like that. And from my perspective, you're now seeing the Midwest really start to be a growth hub. I mean, look at Intel coming to Ohio, all of these startup tech companies going into Pennsylvania. There is a real opportunity. And let's not forget, the country was born out of the East and the Midwest, right? And so for me, I always felt, and I was talking to my mother yesterday. I talk to my mother a couple times a week,
That's good to know.
and she said, I read your book, and I'm so proud of the fact that you are still you, and that your father and myself and others will say, Michael can just be Michael, or he can be in a room with, you know, presidents or senior executives from other companies. And I always just continue to be who I am. And I think that's all we can really do.
Right. Well, one of the things when we talk about it's not good or bad, but it's just different, you have to tell the story of how when you were talking about the deal and the construction plan, and they said they were planning for people to die, actually.
Yeah, I think you have to remember that a lot of these countries are communist countries are very regimented. And there is a control or a process oversight for everything. And that was so fascinating to me to sit in a room of a couple hundred, it had to be 200 or 300 people in that room. And I'm watching a group that they were diligent and they were taking notes as I was speaking and the translator was interpreting. And as soon as I was done, they were the first group and they stepped up to there was a podium, they stepped to the mic and they said, thank you for your wonderful presentation. We would like to make you aware that based on the size of investment and the number of employees that you're going to have here, that you will be allowed, I think it was 30 something deaths. And I remember I remember asking the interpreter to repeat that, I think like 3 times. And she said, no, that's what they're saying. And I said, listen, with all due respect, our goal is to not have anybody die. We want to create a safe work environment. We want to make sure everybody has a place that they can come to and feel secure, do their job. And they laughed. And they weren't laughing to be disrespectful.
Right.
And so I don't mean this to sound like an attack on the Chinese culture. That was a very real moment for me to understand that we had to educate them as much as they had to educate us on how we were going to meld our cultures and business practices together to be successful.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah,
And so probably you taught them something as much as you learned from them, correct?
we did. And I will tell you, the Walt Disney Company is an absolutely phenomenal company. And one of the things that I always appreciated about them was they would state publicly, safety is not our exclusive intellectual property. We will go to Universal Studios, we'll go to SeaWorld. Anybody who wants to learn from us on how to be safe, we will show. Because no one should be hurt. No one's lives should be put at risk by going on a fun ride with your family.
Yeah.
And so we took that very seriously, and we said to that same group, if you will allow us, we'll give you our manual. We'll show you exactly how to do this. And the one great thing about the Chinese culture, they want to be the best, and they want to learn, and they want to show that they can do it as well, if not better than anybody else in the world.
So how did you get to Disney? Talk about that a little bit.
I was an undergrad at Bowling Green State University, probably as immature undergrad as you're ever going to find. I was a business major, no idea what that meant. My father was a business person. And I was going straight from undergrad to get my MBA because I really liked being a student. And I was having a whole bunch of fun. And a friend of mine who also went to Bowling Green was working at Walt Disney World. In fact, he was my big brother from my fraternity.
Okay.
And he called me and said, "Don't stay up there for the summer. Come down. We'll have a blast. Come down and work at Walt Disney World." I was scared to death. Again, going to Bowling Green was a big leap for me. And so I said, okay. I lived on his couch for 3 months, and I was getting ready to come back and start my graduate degree. And the Walt Disney, my leader at the time, his name was Bruce Jones. He came to me and he said, "Hey, look, you're doing a really great job. We need great people. If you're interested in staying, we can put you on a path." And I thought a lot about it. I was having a lot of fun down there, just like my friend promised. And I said, "Sure, why not? I trust you guys." I was so impressed. I remember the first week when I went to Disney, they spent an entire week training me on Disney culture. We just sat in a classroom, walking parks, doing things. I was just overwhelmed by how well they did things. And so I thought, this would be a great company to start a career. Now, I had no idea where it was going to take me.
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of mentors and I trusted a lot of folks, but it was out of a summer job that, I ended up working there almost 25 years.
Wow. Did you have to wear any costumes?
I did. I worked at a place called Pleasure Island.
Mm-hmm.
And if you know the story of Pinocchio, Pleasure Island was it was the place where people went to turn into jackasses. And so this was a nightclub district. And so it was very befitting that it was titled Pleasure Island, Disney with Theme, because when people drink, they kind of turn into a jackass sometimes. And I wore it looked like an ice cream costume, right? It was a white costume. It had like teal little things on the shoulders, shorts, tennis shoes. And I sold tickets and I ran valet and I did some bar backing. And man, I had a lot of fun. But it taught me a lot about guest service, being there, and I was like anybody else. If they needed somebody on a 6th day or a 7th day or to work 15 hours, my dad always told me, "You be the guy who will do anything they ask you to do. They ask you to clean the toilets, go clean the toilets."
That's right.
And so I learned a lot by doing that.
Yeah, I did the same thing, as a matter of fact. And that's the start of a good career.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
It really enabled me also when I was doing deals in other places to talk from a place of very detailed knowledge.
Yeah.
And so it helped me explain to the counterparty that I was dealing with why we needed certain things. And once they understood that, it helped a lot.
So fast forward to Canton, Ohio, and you walk in and you see this project half done or hanging there.
I think you're being generous with half done.
Yeah. A fourth done. I mean, what did you think when you walked in? What were your thoughts? Really, truthfully.
The first day, now you remember, this was residential houses.
Yeah, I remember.
I mean, right where the Center for Excellence and everything, these were homes.
And there was one holdout of a house for a long time.
One holdout, yeah. So when I pulled up to the address that they gave me for my office, it was one of those homes. And my office was in the bedroom of the house. And I thought, well, this is going to be interesting. But you know what I really thought? I thought, this is going to be a heck of a lot of fun. Because if we can pull this off, the impact we're going to have on the community and the stories we're going to have. Remember when we were in that building and the heat? And this is no lie. I came in December of 18. The heat in that, was really old.
Yeah.
And so one of our guys who worked for us, he'd go out and rattle the pipes and, the wire, and it'd come back on for a couple of hours and it'd go off and come back on. Yeah. So those were, the heat in the office would go off and, we'd have any number of other lighting, the electric would come on and off, but it was a lot of fun. But the thing I saw was the vision and where we could create something really world class. Now, the other thing, candidly, that I saw was a lot of things not finished. And you had a stadium that had 2 end zones that were either rock or weeds, not good. You had a half, not even half. You had a defunct hotel site with steel coming up and graffiti on it, not good. You had a sports complex with 4 fields and then mud all around it and an old school building. So, I talk about creating things that are world class. You can't do that with stuff that's partially finished. So a big part of what I realized pretty quickly was we had to come up with a plan that would finish the stuff that was already in flight and then also pace the other things so that we didn't get too far out over our skis. And that was something that I learned from Disney that's also in the book, which is you don't build the church for Easter Sunday. You don't build it complete. You build things, you build more things, and as your attendance grows, you keep adding more and more to increase your length of stay and incentivize more visitation. So we had to, really, again, lessons I've had over my career, re-strategize what we were going to do to
Yeah.
make the village successful.
And as I read the book, I kept inserting Canton into the things that you were talking about in Shanghai and everywhere else. And it fit as I see how things
Yeah,
have progressed here.
yeah.
Um,
There was a, I'll just say this as well, and I hope no one minds, but there was a healthy dose of distrust with everything that was being said here. Not unlike other parts of the world or other deals that I've had. Now, the companies I was working with were highly trusted, but there was always this Western stigma to, wait a minute, are you telling us the truth or not?
yeah.
It was the same here. And so I had to work, as did the team. And that was what I said to them. We will do what we say we are going to do. Other than that, if we can't do it, we'll say we won't do it.
Right.
And so we've tried to be very transparent and very communicative to leaders in the community, to the community itself, but also to the government as well.
And you were last week. I'll bring that up so you can just kind of give us a little synopsis of that. The situation with the finances and the layoffs and things like that, explaining what was happening
Right.
here.
Yeah. Look, 7 people's lives were impacted, and for us, that's meaningful, and I don't ever take that lightly. Um, but we needed to think about one, being efficient and effective with our costs, and two, reallocating dollars where they're needed. And we are growing in certain areas faster than in other areas. And so a couple years in, I think any leadership team that is strategic and forward looking is always assessing, matching the resources with the needs. And so I think that was a big priority for us. Um, Again, not easy, but I think the right decisions were made. And as we move forward, last week we aligned responsibilities. We promoted a few people. We actually have added a few positions now. We're taking over some of the food and beverage operation ourselves. We've added people to do that. So I'm confident that we will continue to think about where the resources are needed and be efficient with our labor as we had to this past couple of weeks.
And from the outside, we look at it's new. You're new. I mean, it's a new venture. And we all learn along the way as you do things, right?
I said it this morning to the team, and I've done this a lot in my career, when you open, you're not stabilized for 3 to 5 years. Every month is different. And think about last year to this year, more events, a dome running, um, things opening in fan engagement zone, new rides opening. So the dynamic of the property continues to change. So you start more inefficient because you want to make sure you have the coverage that you need. And then as time goes by, you streamline and become more efficient because you understand how to operate.
Right.
And that's where we're at. And it's where we're going to be for the next couple of years.
And Ann Gravis and I have talked. I'll finish with this. Her and I have talked about this many times. About there's always going to be that faction of people out there that are, the naysayers or not going to believe or just sit there, like a mouse waiting to pounce on whatever might happen negatively. If you could say something to them, what kind of message would you have for them?
Listen, the beauty of living in the United States is people can say what they want to say. And what we need to do is let our actions speak versus our words. And I think sometimes, because we're a public company, what gets confused is the real progress we're making and the sustained growth that we're having versus what is our stock price.
Yeah.
And what I find is the negativity comes maybe from folks that are more worried about trying to make money in the stock market. By the way, if you look at the stock market over the past couple of years, that's not an easy thing. don't look at our company, look at every company out there trading at 52-week lows or even lower. We're living in a really difficult environment right now, and we're a startup company. So I think people have to put in perspective the great progress that is being made, the experiences that are coming to life out of the ground, and the services and things that we're doing, not only here, but our media. We had a show on Fox prime time on Super Bowl weekend. Our media company's like 1.5 years old. And we've already started to fill our pipeline. Jimmy Johnson Gone Fishing, World Chase Tag. I mean, there's been Inspired. There's been multiple shows. I mean, this is really good stuff and high quality stuff. It just takes time to get to a place where, one, you're profitable, and two, you get out of a really difficult macroeconomic environment where everybody can start to prosper and develop. So a long-winded answer, but I think sometimes I understand the negativity because people want to try and they're trying to better their lives. And so they make a bet on the stock market and it doesn't pay off as quickly as they like. Well, then the company is bad and the leadership is bad. And that's just not true. I'm
And
really
change
proud of
in
the
this
team.
area, we all know change for some people in this area is tough. They're very tied to their roots and Fawcett Stadium, and even when before anything happened, when they changed it to Tom Benson, that was a hard pill for everybody to swallow for a little while there too. So
our tagline is honor the past and inspire the future. And so we've tried to walk that line of everything that has been done before us. We're still trying to make sure that there is a credibility and an integrity to that. We want to continue to grow and have these things that people haven't been able to have here before. And I think we're showing that we can do that. I really appreciate the support. There's, as you say, there's always going to be folks that are a little cynical, but I get much more of this is a wow, this is fantastic. Kevin Hart coming here, Zach Brown coming here, kids concerts, all these different events. And now an indoor dome, outdoor rides. If you look at that water park site right now, you got to be excited about that stuff.
Very exciting.
I know I am.
I
It's
am
fantastic.
too. Yeah.
So,
and Vino at the Village, that was awesome.
Yeah. So, I'm really proud of the team. I just keep saying you're not relevant until you're relevant. And I think every day we become more and more relevant in people's lives. That's when the negativity will, I think, start to subside. That and when the stock price goes up faster for folks. I can't sit around and worry every day about the stock price. I pay attention to it for our shareholders, but we have to execute. That's what we have to do.
Well, I think the book is a great insight into you. And so people can get to know you better. I would recommend it just for that reason alone.
Thank you.
And they can understand, where you've been, what you've done, what you've seen, and how you're approaching this project. I think it's, like I said, a great insight. So I wish you the best of luck with the book.
Thank you. I hope people enjoy it. I really do. I always had folks saying to me, you should write a book, all these lessons, all the things you've seen. So I decided to do it. It was 2.5 years of not fun late nights and early mornings because, by the way, I had to focus on this job. That's all people that really should care about. But it does. I'm proud of it, and I think it does give people insight as to how I approach doing things. And I had someone say to me, which I guess is one of the biggest honors an author can have, which I guess I'm an author, but I don't think of myself that way.
Yes.
It's very readable and relatable.
It is very readable. Absolutely.
Someone said, I thought it was going to be more like a textbook. I said, I'm not smart enough to write a textbook. I just write, my experiences.
No, it was great. It was great. I appreciate the time today.
Well, thank you for coming.
You.
Great to have you out here.
Thank you.